This meeting is for 1 hour and 30 minutes, and we have two speakers today. Isaac will be up first for 30 minutes, followed by Nanette V for 30 minutes. Nanette and Isaac will be speaking on 12-step transformation into emotional sobriety. We're absolutely delighted to have both of you with us today at God's meeting. Next up, we have Nanette V from Ellicott City, Maryland. Her home group is Prime Time, New York City. Nanette, the floor is yours. Come on in.
All right. Hey, family. Nan, I'm a very, very grateful alcoholic. Wow, Isaac. Speechless, really speechless. And it's been an honor to connect with you over the past couple of weeks with looking at emotional sobriety. Yeah. Wow, what a powerful group. And welcome newcomers and those that are just in their first year or so. There's an energy that comes through the Hollywood squares here. God is no respecter of the things here. God is God, and God is here in the room with us. And it's so evident. I can feel it. I could just feel it. And this particular group is, you were playing the music. I wanted to dance. I thought that was so cool. So I'm really grateful and honored. Tamara, there you are. Thank you for asking me. So my home group is Prime Time, New York City, and our particular home group focuses on emotional sobriety, treating the diseasiness, which is not a word. It's a word that works for me. It's a word that I use because, as I keep growing up in recovery and in this emotional sobriety, I just open myself up to the spirit of what words are going to work and resonate for my own soul, my own inward dance, my lovership with God. That's what it is for me, a lovership with God in the day that I'm in. So we focus on treating the diseasiness in the day, right here, right now. I got sober in 2007 in June 27th. And but when I came in, and just a little backstory, not too much, because one of the things we don't do in prime time is focus on the story. There's a danger with the alcoholism and my experience in emotional sobriety to lock up in the story and become like victim of it. And I got to be careful with that. So I like to identify and then move into the solution, because God is my solution. God is what's keeping me sober. And I just pray that God get the glory out of my vocal cords today. I don't know what's going to be said. But I came in the rooms in 1992. I came in through our sister program. And the finger was being pointed out there at the time in all the alcoholics in my family. So I wound up in our sister program, and voila, come to find out, and I knew deep in my spirit, probably as a teenager, that something wasn't right. Something wasn't right. And even before that, my first experience with God was I was 5 years old. I'm not going to go into that experience, but I had a spiritual experience at 5 years old. And I'm so grateful for that, because I really there was a thirst for spirit. There was a thirst, and that at the same time there was a thirst to just get out of here, get out of this body. What the heck was this body, and what the heck was this world, and how was I going to live here? How was I going to deal with emotions? Because I don't know about anybody else, but in my family, you didn't talk about emotions. You didn't talk about that. You just put on a face. You put on a mask. Everything's good. Pink elephant in the room, purple polka dots on the elephant. Nobody saw it. And I saw it and I felt it. And then I was going to figure out, how was I going to manage this? This is where life became unmanageable before the drugs and the alcohol. I was a mixologist. So I became a chameleon. I became an overfunctioner. I became a people pleaser. I became someone that could predict what was going to happen before it was going to happen. And then I would automatically go in and fix it in the family dynamics because I was the peacemaker in the family. And that's a very painful place to be. Not knowing what these emotions were, couldn't even identify them. And early on, actually, it was in not grammar, it was in intermediate school. I don't even think we use that term anymore, but it was intermediate school, 7th grade, something like that. And I was going to a guidance counselor because something was restless, irritable, discontent, but I didn't know that. Later on, when I came into recovery, I began to understand the language, began to make things started falling into place. But I was reaching out for help early on, and then the bottle and the benzoids was a way to just shut everything off, and that started in teenage years. It started in teenage years. And I'm grateful for this experience at 5 years old because I went to a Jesuit college. And it's really weird, I say it jokingly, maybe somebody will identify in the room, but I just felt like something was on me. I felt like something was on me in going through college. And I go into this chapel in the Jesuit college I was in, and I would go 3 times a day. There was something in getting me just to pray, to be okay. I just wanted to just be okay. But I wasn't. But that was something that I could go to, and that was something I could just go to. It makes me want to cry because I didn't know what was the matter. I didn't know about the mental diseasiness of alcoholism. Bottles were a solution. Benzoids was a solution. And when I came in 1992, and through the sister program, I hit a bottom. I hit a bottom, but that bottom had a trap door to it. And when I came in 1992, I remember, and this is the arrogance, I'm going to say spiritual arrogance, because I was studying a lot of spiritual things, right? And I came into the rooms and I saw those steps, and the idea that was going on in the head, the insane voice talking to itself in the head. There are the steps. If I read them through, it means I did them. Crazy, right? Anyway, didn't stay sober, and I can't even consider myself that. I had sobriety for a period of time. Long story short, when 2007 hit, I had a spiritual awakening. And prior to that, I was deep diving into some deep practice in meditation. And I'm not going to go into all the dynamics of the spiritual practice, but I had a spiritual experience and an awakening. It lasted for 7 days, and I was brought in on my knees to Alcoholics Anonymous. I know today it was not me that got me to that meeting. It wasn't me. I'm very clear about it. I was being moved. I felt a presence of love that was not like anything human I'd ever experienced in my entire life. And I began to look at everything here, and I'm like, wow, what is this finite place? I began to find out it was really nothing and God was everything. And really the hole in the donut was the deal. That was the deal. And so I came in and I heard the small voice, but it's a big voice, it's a gentle voice, and it's a powerful voice that said, don't look back. Don't look back. And enlarge my spiritual condition every day. And I got sober at the Jersey Shore, and there was a lot of emotional sobriety workshops going on. And I'm so, so grateful for where I started, because emotional sobriety was presented to me early on, very early on. And Bill Wilson's letter, which really just, when I read that letter, I had heard, people say it's the 4th legacy. And I really believe that, because Bill, after 20 some odd years of being in recovery and working the steps and all of that, he realizes he's about ready to go into a very serious depression. And I was seeing this early on in the rooms. I was noticing, people maybe 30 years and a couple of people in the area where I was from, they didn't drink. They were sober for 30 years, more than one. One was 27 years, another was 30 years in recovery, and they took their own life in recovery. That's serious to me. This disease is a disease of the mind. It's an allergy of the body. It's a disease of the mind. And when is it treated? Right here, right now, in the day that I'm in. First 3 steps, I'm powerless. My thought life is unmanageable. And I've got to look at what's in the dungeon. And so emotional sobriety for me is going down deep into the dungeon and clearing the decks. The steps are going to go deeper. They're going to go deeper. They're going to go deeper. And I've gone into so many different workshops through the years of going into different ways that we today have so many opportunities of all the different ways we can experience going through the steps. My personal heart, I like the Big Book Awakenings. That's maybe not for everybody, but that's, when I do a 4-step, when I do a mini, I can't tell you how many stacks. I printed them all out. I probably have about 100 stacks. Okay. Because you just never know, and for me, I don't want the diseasiness on me. So I need to get to it quickly. So when something comes up, I don't really wait. I will write out a mini 4-step on something. If it's something that's kicking around for more than a week, there it is. So that's my personal heart on that particular, using the steps. I like the format in the Big Book Awakenings, but in emotional sobriety, and I'm going to read, I've been asked to facilitate some workshops, and I've got all this paperwork, and it's there it is, but I didn't even get this out. I just kind of go into prayer and let the good Lord just kind of move through. But there's just a lot. There's so much here in emotional sobriety. There's so much to look at. I like to look at the Harry Tiebout work. I love the Harry Tiebout papers. Some of it's conference approved, some of it isn't. Some of it is in AA Comes of Age. And then there's the Harry Tiebout papers. My particular home group, we deep dive into looking at the Tiebout work because it really helps me look at what is alcoholism. I need to see what I'm up against in the day that I'm in. You see, in this particular emotional sobriety letter that Bill Wilson wrote, one of the things that became clear to my own spirit as he's writing and speaking to me beyond the grave is that he's saying, wait a second, there's something more going on here. Why was he staring at the prayer of St. Francis? And this is in his emotional sobriety letter. Why aren't the steps working? Why aren't the prayer of St. Francis? And what Bill Wilson came to realize, this is a revelation. And for me, Bill was he was a visionary. I really feel that, God was pushing the pen when all of this literature got when it was written out. God was pushing the pen. But Bill is basically saying, wait a second, there's something before that needs to be recognized. And what does he say? It's false dependencies. It's these hobbling demands. What are these dependencies? These dependencies, before I started drinking and drugging, was on my mother needed to be a certain way, my father needed to be a certain way, and all I needed to do was manipulate myself to get them to be a certain way, and then I could figure out how I can manipulate my own personality to try to get them to be and it was a game. It was a false universe. Literally. It was a false character. Right? So Bill is saying, what's before? Before is I've got to look at these false dependencies. So I just want to read a little bit here. Well, this particular is in the 12 and 12 on page 106. It says, we begin to practice all 12 steps of the program and our daily lives so that we and those about us may find emotional sobriety. So how am I practicing the steps today in the day that I'm in? I need to have a new step 1 experience. When? Now. I need to have a new step 2 experience. When? Now. I need to have a new step 3 experience. When? Now. All of the steps each day. I can't live on yesterday's experience. I need to open up today. What does God have for me today? It really is subtraction. So, where is it? Okay, so Bill Wilson states in The Next Frontier in the Emotional Sobriety Letter, thus I think it can work out with emotional sobriety. Here it is, family. Here it is. If we examine every disturbance, what disturbance? Every disturbance. And I can personalize. It says every disturbance we have. I can say I, put it on the I. Great or small, we find at the root of it is some unhealthy dependency and its consequent unhealthy demand. Let us, with God's help, continually surrender these hobbling demands. Then we can be set free to live and to love. We may then be able to 12-step ourselves into emotional sobriety. So now it's like looking at each of these steps with a deeper lens. What is emotional sobriety for you? What is emotional sobriety in step 1? For me, it's living and coming from a place of neutrality, safe and protected, a place of calmness, a place of stillness. How do I get there? Each day I've got to look at, what am I powerless over? Is somebody in one of the Hollywood squares, I don't know, they're making a funny face and I decide that the insane voice in the head is going to start to make up a story about what I think it means? There's dependency right there. Somebody just cut me off in traffic. Oh, they don't like me. There's the dependency right there. I got disturbed. I gave them the power. How often in step 1 in emotional sobriety am I making something else an idol or an image before God? What do I put before God? This, you, that, whatever. Broke a fingernail. Oh, I'm all upset about it. There's a dependency. I just got upset about it. Why? This entire program is about walking hand in hand with the spirit of the universe. I like to say spirit-led life, spirit-led living, which means no Nan. When it talks about the hole in the donut, that's basically entering into the nothingness. So the everythingness of God can begin to direct my life and direct my thinking. I love that you read from Thomas Merton. Thomas Merton has been a long time teacher of mine, really, really long time. And I love his work. And I go to his work a lot and practice a lot of, for years I did his, the Book of Hours, years and years and years practicing that. So one of the things, in each step, and I wanted to read something else. Oh, yeah. This is part of the letter as well. He talks about, oh, yeah. Okay, where is it? Let me just indulge me here. I've got 11 minutes. Because I have over the years undergone a little spiritual development, the absolute quality of these frightful dependencies. That's the biggest key for me each day. Where am I being codependent or false dependent? Whatever word you want to use. Where? Because wherever that is where I want to see the chink in the armor. That's the practicing of step 10 in the day that I'm in. And this I must bring in 6 and 7, humbly offering. I don't use the term character defects. That's just a personal thing. For me, it's character defenses. These defenses were built as a wall, idols that were coming before God. These things are not me. These things are not me. I'm always looking at what I'm not, so what I am becomes available. God extended love, that is what we are. We are the love of God. We are the very image of God, and something appeared to go off the wall. I come from a long line of dysfunctionality and alcoholism. Alcoholism isn't what I am. I have it, and it needs to be treated in the day that I'm in. The front line, first 3 steps. Alcoholism, ego, and self is something we focus on in my home group. But anyway, let me finish reading here. So, so while those words, where was I? And I just lost. Oh, yeah. I had to exert every ounce of will and action to cut off these faulty dependencies upon people, upon AA, indeed upon every set of circumstances. So he's saying these frightful dependencies had never before been so starkly revealed. Now, this is where I'm in the day that I'm in, looking at all the steps, and I'm probably not going to go in through all the steps. Isaac did a perfect job of that, really. Like, he went through all the steps, so thank you. But the frightful dependencies had never before been so starkly revealed. So I can look at these frightful dependencies. They're going to show up in step 4, and then they're going to be confessed out in step 5. And in step 6 and 7, I'm going to humbly offer them. In 8 and 9, obviously, I'm going to go out and clear the wreckage so I can be right sized with God and everybody else. And then 10, 11, and 12, I'm going to be, growing in effectiveness each day in what God would have me be. So reinforced by what grace I could secure in prayer, I found I had to exert. Now, when he's saying exert every ounce of will and action to cut off these faulty emotional dependencies upon people, upon AA, indeed upon any set of circumstances, that means like horrific things. Horrific things. I can't even depend on horrific things to make me feel good or bad. Good or bad. Can I go through something horrific and rest in peace? Rest in the power that's keeping me sober. Can I trust? That's emotional sobriety. The world isn't rocking me out in the stratosphere. This world of duality is nonsensical for me. Nonsensical. I've got to look at this world of duality, and I've got to take an inward posture of non-duality. That's just what works for me. That means God is everything. That's what that means. God is everything. And everything else, I just got to wear it like a loose garment. Really, really loose. So that it doesn't become constricting. The deal is once I'm not wearing it loose, that's when I begin to build a story. So he's saying exert every ounce of like, I'm taking action. What that means for me, and this is just for me, in emotional sobriety, I must go through what is an afterburn of experiencing those disturbances that I think that something outside is causing me pain. I need to see that it's an outside picture of an inward condition. I need to sit with God and I need to let it burn, baby, burn. Let that alchemy happen. I need to go through an alchemical process where I can sit with whatever it is and let God transform it. I'm not going to fix myself. I'm not going to be able to change myself. I can do writing about it. I can inventory it. I can use the steps. I can go through the Big Book Awakenings process. I can use all of that. But I'm going to need to sit, and I'm going to need to sit with some uncomfortability. I experienced something last week, it was a family thing that came up. It was very interesting. And I needed to experience something. I needed to recognize that I can't fix, manage, or control anything that goes on in somebody else's hula hoop. Sometimes some of us may have family members that are not in recovery, not to judge whether they are not or whatever, because then that can become another dependency. It's just they are where they are. And in family dynamics and family systems, things can come up. And so something came up, and I had the opportunity to sit, be still, be non-reactive, pray, ask this is for me, Holy Spirit, to correct all errors in my mind. Help me to forgive. Let me lay this upon the holy altar of light to be transformed, and let me back away from it. Because sometimes backing away and setting internal functional boundaries and external functional boundaries, that's a whole nother workshop. That's powerful, because I really need to be with God, and I need God to direct me. And sometimes the best thing is to go silent. In my other sister program, I hear a lot, my greatest victories is when I kept my mouth shut. My greatest victories is when I kept my mouth shut. So one of the things Bill says in here, after he says, like faulty emotional dependencies had to be cut off upon people, upon AA, indeed upon any set of circumstances. Then and only then could I be free to love as Francis had. Emotional and instinctual satisfactions I saw were really the extra dividends of having love, offering love, and expressing a love appropriate to each relation of life. Plainly, I could not avail myself of God's love until I was able to offer it back to him by loving others as I would have, as he would have me. And I couldn't possibly do that so long as I was victimized by false dependencies. This is huge. This is huge. So in each step, every single step can begin to go a little deeper, a little deeper. Where do I lose my center of gravity? Where do I lose my center of gravity? Somebody, last year, and this was a crazy story, but if it really, and I'm grateful for the grace of emotional sobriety. There's a grace there, but it's a willingness to die to everything that I think in the infinite realm. Oh, that's a deep statement, but that's just how it comes out of this body temple. Last year, I wound up in a hospital, but it was a month after the event happened. My appendix burst in January of last year, but I did not know that. Anyway, in the midst of that, I cried out and I prayed. And I said, God, if it's my time to go, I go. In that moment. And I did not go to the hospital, but I didn't feel so good. And I went to sleep and I prayed. And I basically did a form of faith healing. Anyway, about a month later, I was still having stomach issues. And when I went to the hospital, I had such a peace. I went to emergency. I had such a peace in me. And I knew intuitively something wasn't right, but I didn't know what it was. I just didn't know. And when I got there, and they took all these tests and they did an x-ray, the surgeon came out and he says, your appendix burst. It looks like it burst a while ago. And the infection walled itself off. It walled itself off in the body. How did that happen? And I did eventually go in, and they took it out. They had to put me on antibiotics. The point I'm making is, I believe with emotional sobriety is the losing interest in whatever this personal story ever was with Nan, or losing interest. Not that I don't take care of the body temple. It's that not to see myself as a long-lasting separated self. We're not separated. And the reality is we keep our head in the clouds with God and our feet on the ground where our fellow travelers are, where the work is. So the real deal is resting in spirit and not getting so attached to this body, because someday we're all going to have to lay this thing down. We're going to have to lay this thing down, family. And if I get so attached to it, it's going to be hard. I think it's one of my favorite priests. He's out in New Mexico, Richard Rohr. He says, you got to die before you die. You just got to die before you die. And isn't that the truth? Isn't that what the St. Francis prayer says? But that whole time through this whole hospital episode was like, there was a peace. And at one point, I was going through a lot of sweating when I stayed overnight, and I called upon the chaplain, and the chaplain came up, and she brought me this prayer blanket. It was so cool. And I spent the night with this prayer blanket on me, just praying. Because, I just remember, God, if this is my time, okay. See, that's emotional sobriety. And then I got to say, that's a grace. And that's a grace of this program. These steps work. But for me, they've got to go deeper. I've got to go deeper with step 11. Step 11 and step 2 are directly married to each other. Step 11 is always going to point to my step 2. It's going to show me where I am in emotional sobriety. I'm going to be given power only to carry out God's will. Nothing else will work. My practice in step 11 is centering prayer. It's been centering prayer since 2009. And that's been a mainstay for me every day. So I don't really feel that there's anything else that I can feel the Spirit wants to express other than for all of us to begin to take a look at what idol comes up, what, sometimes just to sit with uncomfortability and bring it to God, that holy altar of light within us, to be dissolved, because these dependencies can come up where I could be running somewhere to try to get out of myself, even to a meeting. And meetings are valuable. They're important. But spiritual bypass is deadly. So it's important that I not be afraid to move through. So there it is. My time's up. I love you.
Thank you, Isaac and Nanette, for an absolutely beautiful message. So this is your opportunity to participate in your recovery by asking a question about emotional sobriety or anything related. So first up is Kira. Please come in with your question and tell me which one it is for.
Hey, it's actually a question. Hi, Kira, alcoholic. It's actually a question for both of you, Isaac and Nanette. I'm curious. I myself have experienced, being a dry alcoholic, being that dry drunk, not practicing my emotional sobriety. And I'm just curious, have either of you experienced that? And if so, what did you do to get yourself out of? So I guess, Isaac, then Nanette, can you share for me just because I want to know?
Thank you, Kira. Isaac, you want to come in with that?
Oh yeah, thanks, Kira. Really great question. I guess there's so I had lots of experience with that before I came into AA and threw myself into the 12 steps. Lots of experience, and it was all very painful and really unpleasant. Since I've been in AA and been working the steps, there's been instances, I guess, where I've started to lean into that false dependence that Nanette talked so beautifully about. And what I found is I'm quite sensitive to that. So when I start to do that, it does get a bit uncomfortable quite quickly. And luckily, I know what the tools are to pick up and connect to God in my steps 10 and 11. And when I do that, I get the correct direction. It does relieve that from me. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Isaac. Nanette, do you want to chime in on that since Kira specifically asked?
Yes, beautiful question. Beautiful, beautiful. One of the things I don't know if I mentioned, I have a practice where in the day that I'm in, anything can come up because, we're living in a world that anything could come up. So one of the things in falling into, I call it falling into the diseasiness or listening to the insane voice in the head. It's like flypaper. Flypaper, it's like, oops, and you get stuck to it, and then you're in sobriety. Then you're in an emotional sort of untreatedness, untreated, right? Okay, so first things first, I ask immediately for correction by God, by the Holy Spirit. That's my practice. And one of the things I do is I fall back with God. I fall back into the arms of God, and I look at what that is. It's a self-talking head. It's a dis-ease. It's a wagon full of monkeys. That's not me. I look at it and I offer it up to forgiveness. Non-judgmental awareness is my practice. When I judge it, there's my head. Then I've claimed it, and now I'm going down the rabbit hole. Non-judgmental awareness, I forgive it. I watch it like a movie. That diseasiness is not what I am. It's not what you are. I watch it and I forgive it with God, with the higher power. Hope that helps.
Thank you, Nanette, and thank you, Kira. That was beautiful. And while you guys are raising your hands, I have a question from the chat. And this one is for Isaac. I'm trying to find a balance. Should I be pushing myself into finding a balance in my program so the emotional sobriety comes more quickly? And how did you find the balance in your program? So that's for you, Isaac.
Thank you. Yeah, great question. I guess it depends what you mean by balance. I know that can have a few different interpretations. What my experience has been up until this moment is the more I just throw myself into a relationship with God and through that into vigor in working the steps in my daily life, specifically in that watching in step 10 and that connection in step 11. The other stuff, like I said, I don't need to be dependent on these other things to be okay. It just is, and it happens as it's meant to happen. I hope that makes sense and answers your question.
Thank you, Isaac. That was beautiful. And Bal, you had your hand up earlier. Do you have a question? Please come in.
Hi, yes, I did have a question, but I think it may have already been asked. So basically, yeah, my question was like, do you know when these false thoughts come in, like, what do you do with them? That is what I wrote down, but it feels like you've already answered that, to be honest. But you can answer it again if you want.
And that's for Isaac.
Nan, please.
Nan.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah. Beautiful. Again, it's non-judgmental awareness. Being in awareness and watching. Observe, but don't absorb. Look, but don't stare. Observe, but do not absorb. Watch the insanity, the diseasiness, and rest with the higher power. Rest in God. It's the judgment that keeps me stuck. Once I judge it, then I'm identifying with the wrong master, and I can't serve two masters. I can only serve one.
Thank you, Nanette, and thank you, Bal. Beautiful. And Sam, please come in with your question and tell me, is it for Nanette or Isaac?
Garlic. Probably both of you, I guess. Thank you so much for your shares. I related so much to Isaac's story, like in so many ways. And then that you just have some cracking like terms, like ways of saying things that I'm gonna take away. So thank you so much. It's kind of hard to like explain, I guess, but I'm just over a year in, and I remember coming in and feeling like I didn't know who I was, and then I start to build myself up for who I am again, and learning about myself in completely new ways. And I just wondered what your sort of thoughts or experiences are of, I guess, the good sides of old character, like really positive parts about you, so like known for having a good sense of humor, or I don't know, whatever it is. I guess what I'm kind of feeling at the moment is the more I'm growing in recovery into sobriety, it's kind of like, I don't know, I'm just interested in how is your experience that those things just kind of merge naturally, or do you feel like you do end up kind of just becoming someone completely new entirely, and it's like a complete change? I don't know if that makes sense.
Thank you. Isaac?
Yeah, Sam, such a good question. I really identify with what you were talking about there, and it just made me the first thing that came into my head. So the parts of me, the interests and kind of hobbies I had when I was a lot younger, I've started to really rediscover recently. A couple that come to mind is reading. I used to read so much as a child, and then as I got more and more unwell, that just didn't become any part of my day-to-day life. And today I spend lots of time just getting absorbed by books, and I'm falling back in love with that hobby. Another thing is like being, it sounds a bit silly, but like preparing like different foods and trying stuff like that out, like things that I had interest in a long time ago kind of faded away, and now I'm realizing that I'm falling in love with again, and kind of like I said in my show, that this big change that's occurred within me, it's only in the best possible way. And those things, a lot of the things that I did have love and joy for when I was much younger, I've still got that, and it's a new experience today, rediscovering that, and it's really wonderful. I would definitely suggest just seeking to what inspires you.
All right, and Nan, you want to comment in on that? That will be our last question today.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, Sam, for the question. There's a mantra I use. It's uncover, discover, discard, and forgive. And my personal experience is that the program of recovery is we're changing into what is changelessness, that which is authentic, that which is that which God created me to be, you to be, and our seed assignment. Some may have a seed assignment of being an artist or a singer or a writer or a dancer. I'm a dancer, and that's reclaimed. So for me, it's more about freeing up that which is in the way, the obstacles to love's presence, and that which you are. The heart grows wings. And so whatever makes your heart grow wings, that is the thing that God has gifted you to move into that seed assignment in this lifetime.
Thank you, Nanette, and thank you, Isaac, and thank you, Sam, for that question. That concludes our Q&A today. Absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much. Over to you, Andy.